Hey, it's Nick here for AE Toots, and today I'm going to teach you guys how to make a logo animation, kind of vintage 80s, something you'd see, like at the end of a TV show. So let's check it out. Here we go. All right, let's get started. Open up After Effects, and we're going to make a new composition here, and click here to make a new composition, and we're going to make this HD 1280 by 720, and it's going to be around 10 seconds long, and I'm going to make this 24 frames per second just to make it a little more filmic. Okay, here we go, and we got our comp up. First thing we need to do is type out the word we want to kind of fly in. And the best thing about the way we're going to do this is after the fact we're going to be able to switch the type out. So let's start with vintage. There we go. And I chose a really kind of bold font. It kind of works better with a real thick type of font. For this it's Futura Bold. So here we go. I'm going to center this, and we have our type. And I'm going to pre-comp this. And the reason I'm going to pre-comp it is so later we could come back and actually replace this type. So we're going to call this main type. Here we go. Looks good. Okay, so now we have our base layer of type, and we're going to start to build out all the effects that create this kind of vintage neon kind of look here. First thing we're going to do is add a bevel and emboss. Actually just bevel alpha is the effect we need. So over in the effects and presets I typed bevel, and we're going to bevel alpha, and by default looks pretty close. We're actually going to flip this around to the bottom here, somewhere around 200 degrees, and we're going to increase the thickness just a bit and increase the intensity. Play around with that, get a real hard bevel there. Next thing we're going to do is just duplicate this comp. So now we have two copies, and what we want to do is add a ramp to our layer here. So over on the side you want to add a ramp. So type in ramp on the effects and presets. We're going to add ramp, and this one we're going to pick kind of a light blue color, somewhere around there. And for the second one we're just going to pick kind of a darker blue. And now here's the secret. We're going to arrange these kind of offset just a bit, and you can see this top corner is kind of the most blue, and it kind of fades off to the darker blue. Maybe we'll go a little bit darker there just to accentuate it. And let's see what from here we're going to add a glow effect to our layer. Now the After Effects standard glow, stylized glow, works pretty well, but it really works well in 32-bit mode, and that's how we're going to make the rest of this comp. So right here you can see it says 8 bits per channel. If you hold down Option on Mac and Alt on PC and click it, it's going to go to 16-bit and one more time to 32-bit, and now you can see we're starting to get some kind of better glow here. We're actually going to turn that up to start to get a good amount of glow. Let's turn this up a little bit brighter. There we go. So I'm just making our blue just a bit brighter. See what just happened right when I pulled this up? Now we're starting to get this banding, and that's what we want to go for. So I adjusted our ramp just a little bit brighter. And actually we could turn off the bevel alpha on our second layer here. So now we have our glow, and we're just going to turn this down just a bit, the opacity of this layer, just to start to bring some of this bevel back in. Okay, we're getting close here. Next thing we're going to do is duplicate the comp again. Again, we want to use the same comp so that we could change the type later. Now on this next comp we want to start to get the outlining effects from our video. And with this, what we're going to use is a plugin called Vegas. So actually if we delete our other two effects, come over to our effects and presets, type in Vegas, and let's just see what that did all by itself here. Hey, nothing. What we need to do is help this plugin find the edges of where the lights will dance around. This plugin is made to kind of give it that light effect or like dancing bulb lights from downtown Vegas kind of strip. So what we need to do is to help it find the edges. So for that we're going to use image contours, and then we're going to use this threshold here to help it find it. See, as soon as we pulled down on the threshold, we're starting to get some light here. I'm going to make our lights brighter just so we can see what we're doing. So down in rendering, in our effects, I'm going to change the color to white, and I'm also going to change the width. I'm going to turn that up just so we can see what we're doing. Now we're getting close. What we don't want to do is have this many lights. So in our segments, instead of 32, we want to turn this down to just 2. And you can see now we have kind of 2 highlights for each edge of the type. A couple more things we need to do is change the length of each of our glows. So if we turn that down, you can see now we're starting to get into more of like a beveled kind of look. And let's turn this, yeah, that seems about right, somewhere around 3. All right, good. Then the next thing we need to do on the Vegas layer here is we don't want the layers to show through. We only just we don't want the type. All we want are these edges so that we can composite it on top of our other layers. So if we go to blend mode, we can go to transparent, and now you can see all that's left is the bright edges. So now if we turn all of our layers on, you can see we have these bright glowy edges that are kind of being blended onto our other modes. In fact, we could turn this up and down with our transparency, and we could even, if we toggle into our blending modes, use add to kind of give it just a little bit of a boost. We could turn that down just a bit. All right, the last thing we need to do on this Vegas layer is animate these lines so they kind of rotate around our edges. And with that, we're going to use this rotation keyframe here. You can see what the effect is we're trying to do here. So let's start a keyframe at 0, and then go to the end of the comp, and we want to make sure they go this way, so that's negative. So somewhere around maybe 90, 100 degrees. And let's see how that plays out. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Just did a quick RAM preview just to get the speed of it down. That feels pretty good. All right, the last thing we need to do for the type, the main type here, is to add the kind of pink neon around the edge. So let's duplicate this Vegas layer one more time. We're actually going to keep the top one if I start to name these. So this is the white Vegas that we just built. And below that, we're actually going to name this one pink Vegas. And this is our ramp. And below that is our bevel. So when you start to add more layers, you can go back and start to clean up your names, so just so you know where we are. So our white Vegas, we're going to kind of leave alone. Our pink Vegas, we need to do a couple things. Now, we already have the threshold built because we copied and pasted. But what we need to do is turn this, I'm going to solo this, turn these white outlines into a solid pink outline. So the first thing we'll do is kind of pick our pink. And what we want to do is extend the length to 100%. Where we turned it down last time. And if we come back down again, there's end opacity at the very last setting here. And there's midpoint opacity that's 0. So by making all of these opacities 0, it's a little unintuitive in this Vegas plugin, but you can see by turning the opacity all to, 1, that makes more sense. Turn the opacity all to 1. Now we have this solid pink outline that now we can use to composite over our element again. Now it's pretty close. We actually want this to feel more like a neon edge. So what we're going to do is add the glow effect again. I'm going to type into our effects and presets, glow, grab stylized glow, and you can see in 32-bit, glow really starts to give you a nice feel. We could adjust our threshold and adjust our intensity and actually our radius. If we turn that up just a bit, you can see it's starting to kind of give it a hazy kind of pink glow. So we're getting close here. With our main type, we have our highlighted image, we have our pink outline, we have our kind of ramp that is being glowed and kind of posterized. Got that horizon line kind of feel. So we're looking good. All right, now let's start animating this and adding the rest of the effects. So now that we have it all together, we want to make this one layer, and we're going to pre-comp all these again. So select all your layers, and I'm going to hit Shift-Command-C to pre-comp. And we're going to move all attributes into new composition. We're going to call this main, what do we call this? Full type. All right, now we have it. The next thing we need to do is make sure that this is a 3D layer. So let's turn that on. And we're going to animate it coming from behind camera kind of to its resting position. So since it's already kind of where it needs to end, why don't we make our first keyframe here? So let's make a position keyframe. I hit P for position. I'm also going to make hit R for rotation. And click on orientation so we can make a rotation keyframe, because you saw in the video it kind of rotated in. And these keyframes are somewhere around maybe 4 seconds, something like that. Yeah, we could always move that later. Now we're going to go to the beginning and actually kind of work backwards. And I'm going to grab this Z-axis here with my cursor. I'm going to grab it and I'm going to drag it behind the camera. Now if I hold shift, it'll actually go really fast. See, it'll go just behind. Now if it goes all the way behind, we can't judge how far it's rotating, so let's go just ahead. And now let's play with the orientation, and we want to figure out how it's going to fly in. So I think right about there is right. We also don't want this to abruptly kind of come through the camera here. We want to kind of sneak it through this hole. So again, I'm just going to grab the X-axis here, and it gets kind of tedious when it's this close to the camera, but that seems more like it, somewhere around here. And now I'm going to continue dragging it back in the Z-axis just so we clear camera. So now if I make a quick RAM preview of that, we're gonna see the move. Good. All right, now that's pretty close. It's a linear move. So we want to kind of make it a little more elegant. So let's go ahead and get into our curves and adjust the movement. We want to kind of have it fly in really fast and then settle more here. So I'm going to highlight both of our keyframes, our second keyframes, and go into our curves mode here. This with this graph editor toggle. And now you can see we have two sets of curves. Now I'm going to blow this up to full screen just so we can see what we're doing. I'm going to hit the tilde key when my cursor is in this window, and it's going to pop to full screen. See there? Okay, so we're going to work it with one of these at a time. First is position. And you can see we have just a linear move. What we want it to do is kind of be fast here and then dip down and then ease into nothing. So I'm going to highlight our second keyframe. I'm going to grab the handle here, this Bezier handle. I'm going to drag it down and kind of push this curve over. And once I hit 0, because it'll kind of lock to 0. So we just go to 0, we push it. Now you can see our scale kind of moved up. But we have this really fast move in, and then it scales down. The only other thing we need to do is pull this keyframe up just a bit. So now we have really sharp, fast motion out, and then it really quickly moves, and then it slows down right here at the end. I'm going to do the same thing with orientation, just so our rotation kind of matches the speed. I'm going to bring it down to 0. We're going to move this over, and we're going to pull this keyframe up and over. So now we should have a really, if you read the graph, it'll pop out really fast and then slow down and taper in. So let's go back we're going to hit the tilde key again to get back to our main window here. Now let's take a look at that and see what that did. So now you can see it really whips past the camera really quickly, and then really slowly eases into that final position. All right, we're getting closer. From here, let's go ahead and add the background. So I'm going to make a new solid, and we're going to go to Layer, New Solid. And we're just going to make a full solid that's, you click Make Comp Size, it'll make it the full size of your comp. Click OK. Now it automatically comes in above your other layer, so let's drag that behind. We're going to add the ramp effect to this layer. And we're going to choose Ramp Shape Radial Ramp because we want it kind of brighter in the middle and darker on the edges. Now I'm moving our ramp coordinates around here just so we could get them where they need to be. Now we could adjust the color. So obviously this one needs to be a little bit like a bright, not too bright, kind of a medium blue. Let's pick that one. And the outside one is almost black. It's got a little bit of blue in it, but it's really close. Really close to black, somewhere around there. Actually, this may even be a little bright. There we go. All right, that's feeling pretty good. Okay, so we have our background, we have our type flying in. The next thing we need to do is add just a little bit of a camera move, so when it lands, the text continues to kind of float back. Okay, so it's going to fly in, and then the text is going to continue to kind of fall back into space just a bit. So let's add a camera. Go to Layer, New, Camera. And I'm going to pick a 50mm camera, just kind of a standard camera. And everything else is you can kind of leave standard, click OK. And now we have a camera that we're going to kind of animate through the whole process here. So we're going to come to the beginning. We're going to set just a position keyframe for the camera. I hit P for position. I'm going to turn the keyframe on. And then we're going to go to the end of the comp, somewhere around maybe 8 seconds actually. And with the camera tools, we're just going to pull this camera back. Now, the camera tools you cycle through by hitting C on the keyboard. So you can see we're cycling through our move camera tool, our our kind of zoom in and out camera tool, and then our rotate camera tool. Okay, I'm going to undo those, just so we don't mess anything up. The only thing we need is this in and out kind of tool. Okay, so just go ahead and grab the screen. You already have your one keyframe set, which means it'll set a second one automatically. And we're just going to have it kind of drift back to there. That feels about right. And we just want these to ease in and out of where they are. So we'll take the easy way out on this one. And I'm going to highlight both keyframes. And I'm going to right click or control click to pull up this menu and go to Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. And that'll just kind of make that really simple for us to kind of ease into that transition. So let's check out where we are. We'll do a quick RAM preview. Now I'm also doing a shift RAM preview, which means it only renders every other frame. It's just so we can get kind of a general idea of what's going on. That feels pretty good. All right, good. Okay, now here comes the fun part. Now that we have everything going, and it's looking good, we are going to add all the glow effects and all the retro kind of echo effects and everything. So the first thing we'll do is add the echo effect. And to use that, we're going to make a new adjustment layer. Now adjustment layers don't have any transparency, but you can add effects to them that affect everything below the adjustment layer, kind of like Photoshop. And we're going to type in echo, believe it or not. It's called Echo. In Effects and Presets, we have a plugin here called Echo. And what Echo does is look at every frame in your animation, front and back, and try to kind of echo it over time. So the default settings are just one frame, which is this 0.03 is kind of one frame, and then the number of echoes is set to 1. Now the first thing we want to do is extend this echo time to something a little longer so we could actually see each of the echoes. Now, what we want is actually a negative value, because if we go positive, then the echoes will lead the animation. We actually want the echoes to follow the animation, so we're going to do a negative number. For me, it was around -2 was right about where we needed to be. And the number of echoes, we're actually going to turn up to 5. Now, you can see we're starting to get a crazy effect here, and that's because all of these layers, all 5 of these layers, are being added to one another. And that's part of the kind of cool factor with echo, is you start to get these kind of blending mode issues and stuff, especially in 32-bit. We want to turn that down just a bit, though. So in the decay settings in the echo plugin, we're just going to turn that down. And actually, somewhere around 0.5 is a kind of a good area for me. Play around with it. And now you can see we actually have these echoes that kind of fall off at different colors, which is great. And depending on how fast everything moves, you can see it kind of falls in, right? Pretty cool stuff. So let's check that out. And hopefully this doesn't take too long. Now, echo does slow your render down because it is actually rendering another frame for every extra frame. So if by having a number of echoes at 5, we're actually rendering 5 frames for every frame. So keep that in mind. It starts to get a little hairy as far as render times. That's cool. Oh, this got set to 2. This needs to be negative. -0.2. All right. Hey, that makes more sense. All right, now we're going to have the trails. You can see it comes in. I love making mistakes on camera. See, that's the way you do it. It's not always perfect. We're problem solving in real time here. There we go, looking pretty good. I actually might speed the animation for that just a bit, maybe somewhere around 3.5 seconds. That feels pretty good. Okay, the next thing we need to do is add. So we have our beginning echo, right? Now we need to add that kind of, if we go to QuickTime, I think we have it. Let me pull up the movie so we can talk about the same thing. So we have our type flying back. Now we're going to work on this kind of outline animation that flies back at the camera once the type hits. So let's do that. Now, the really great part is we actually already have this outline built in our type. So if we go into our comp by clicking, you actually want to double click on full type here. Now we're back into our pre-comp where we built all of our layers. We actually want to take this pink Vegas layer and just copy it and bring it into our new comp. In this case, this is called Comp 1. I'm going to paste it in. Now you can see the scale is just a little bit off, and that's because we've animated this full type deal. What we want to do is make it 3D, and it should jump right back into place where it belongs, basically. So we have our pink type over our pink Vegas like neon type there, and what we want it to do is kind of fly off of our image as soon as it lands. So the first thing we'll do is go to right at the end of where this animation ended, and we're going to crop our pink Vegas layer down just a bit, just so we're not worried about that layer until right here. Okay? And the next thing we're going to do is just animate just this one layer kind of coming at the camera and rotating. So with our position, you can see we already made that layer 3D to match our other one. And once we make a position keyframe by hitting P and clicking on the stopwatch, we're going to come just a little bit later down the timeline, and we're going to do the same thing we did earlier, only kind of in reverse. We're going to fly it at the camera, and you can see our echo is already on, so we have these echo trails, and we're going to, before it gets all the way back, I'm just going to kind of, maybe we rotate this way. Yeah, that'll rotate the other way. And we didn't set rotation keyframes, so let's go back and do that. We're gonna snap back to the beginning of the of the comp here, of the Pink Vegas comp. And if you hold down Shift, you'll snap to the edges of layers and also to keyframes. So I'm holding down Shift. I'm going to snap right to the beginning here. And I'm going to hit R for rotation, which brings us our orientation keyframe. And I'm going to set a keyframe for that. And hit U to see all of our animations for this layer. Now this Vegas rotation we can actually turn off if you want. It's really not doing anything at this point. But now we want to come back to our other place. I'm holding our other keyframe later down the line here. I'm holding Shift to snap right to it. And now we can play with our Z rotation and start to build up an effect here. And again, I can grab this and just kind of pull this layer back. So that should give us a pretty cool look. So let's see what that looks like. All right. We're getting close. We actually want to tweak these keyframes just a bit. So let's just highlight all four of these new keyframes. And we're going to set it to Easy Ease. So right click on them, go to Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. And that should get us pretty close. And if you want with our position and rotation actually selected, we can go in and adjust this curve just a bit. So I'm going to highlight both of our keyframes in our graph editor, and I'm just going to cheat this one up just a bit, just so it kind of pushes off of our type a little quicker. I'm going to cheat the curve to push it toward the beginning, and I'm going to open this up just a bit. And what that'll do is kind of, instead of easing off of the type, this neon is going to kind of explode off of it in a kind of a more energetic way. So let's see what that looks like. Type's going to fly in. Oh, bear with the render here. Looking good. You can see the echo has actually brightened our background as well, because it does. It is adding all of the effects and all of the layers below our echo adjustment layer. It's actually blending into that. Oh, you can see now our camera is going to bypass where we went. That looks pretty cool, man. Okay, so what we ran into here is our camera is actually catching up with how far we pushed our Pink Vegas layers back. So we're actually gonna just have to pull our Pink Vegas layer back in Z space just a little bit more. So I'm gonna shift drag into our last keyframes here. Make sure they're not all selected like we had them. I'm just gonna click here to unselect them. I'm gonna pull this back into Z space just a little bit more. So I'm going to go to more like, for me it's about negative 2500, but adjust so when the camera moves back it doesn't hit our layer. Okay, we're feeling pretty good there. Now, like I said, it is affecting our background a little bit, so we may want to darken that center color. We're going to go back to our background and just kind of darken this center just a bit. All right, there you. That feels a little better. Also, we want the echo to kind of turn itself down somewhere around here. What we don't want is, see how the echo is blowing all of our nice gradients out of our type. So once all 5 of these layers kind of come together, they start to add on top of each other, and they all kind of turn to white. So right around here, right when the type's kind of coming together, we want to start turning our echo down. So on our adjustment layer, I'm going to hit T for transparency and set a keyframe at 100%, which is where it should be. And then over the course of these pink elements coming at us here, we're going to turn that down. So somewhere around here, I'm just going to go ahead and turn this down to maybe 20%, just to give a little bit of a glow, maybe even earlier. Now, obviously, there's a lot of tweaking, and as you start to animate stuff, you're going to have to go back like we did with the background, adjust certain things that kind of stand out. So, you know, you never do it right the first time. You just got to tweak it until it looks right. And that's what we're doing here. In fact, our background's still a little bright. I'm going to turn this back one, yeah, almost to black. Yeah, it's feeling better. All right, it's looking good. Getting close. Now, this pink neon in my animation is actually blue. So we can actually just go back up to our Pink Vegas neon in this comp, come down and just change the color. Here it is. In rendering, in the Vegas effect. In rendering, there's this pink swatch. If we click it and just kind of pick maybe like a kind of desaturated blue, yeah, that feels more like it. All right, now we're getting close. So we have our type, flies in, good, and then echo, bam, bam, flies out, and it comes back. Now there's one last thing we need to do, and that's this highlight that kind of wipes across. In the QuickTime, there's this little sheen that goes across right after our pink, actually these blue lines leave frame. We have just a little bit, a hint of like a glint that goes across. So let's build that. We're done with our pink Vegas layer. What we're going to use is a technique where we just duplicate this layer and make this layer brighter, and we're going to mask it across. Let me show you what I mean by that. This main type layer that we animated, I'm going to highlight it, I'm going to duplicate it, I'm going to bring it above our Vegas layer. So now we just purely have a copy of our type animation. And I'm going to hit U to show all of our keyframes. And what we don't need is anything before this last keyframe. So we don't want this turned on before it lands into its final position. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and crop that off. We could actually delete these early keyframes. All we want is right when it lands for it to turn on. Now it doesn't look like much is happening, and that's because it's just a copy of itself, and so you really can't see anything. What we want to do is make a really, really bright version of this. So I'm going to solo this layer, and I'm going to add a curves adjustment to this layer. So let's type curves into effects and presets, and add it to the layer by double clicking. And I'm going to open up my curves just a bit so we can see what we're doing. All we want to do is make a brighter version that we're going to kind of glint across itself. So I'm just going to take the kind of middle gamma of this curves and move it up. You can see we're starting to get really nice kind of blown out glossy version of this logo here. Don't want it to get too crazy, but just enough to be kind of bright. Yeah, that feels pretty good. All right, let's close that down. And now we don't want it to all be bright. Let's just turn that on and off. So here's on and off, and we want that glint to kind of rush across. And we only want it to happen after this stuff wipes away. So we're actually going to move this layer just a bit further back so it doesn't start until we need it to. And that's a really good tip whenever you're animating. Always crop your layers to as tight of a layer comp as you can. Even if you're not using this layer, don't use transparency to turn this on. Go ahead and just crop this layer right off. And that'll help with rendering too, because your renderer will just ignore that layer until it has to. Okay, next thing we need to do is grab our pen tool. I'm going to use all the tools in this one. And we're going to make like kind of a trapezoid box here. So we're going to click here. We're going to make a diagonal parallelogram. Am I saying the right word? That sounds about right. Make one of those things. See there? And then we're going to animate this moving across the type. So let's solo that layer one more time. Actually, I guess we can't because we're masking it. So from here, we're going to hit M for mask. And now this mask has a mask path keyframe right here. We're going to turn that on. And what that allows us to do is animate our mask across. So here it is. And we're going to go just a little bit further down the road here, maybe 7 seconds. Make it like a 3-second wipe. And the next thing we do is double click on our mask. And that gives us our bounding box around the mask. And now we just need to animate it across. Now see what it's going to do when it goes across? We can kind of see it almost live here. It's going to give that glint across our frame. So animate it all the way across, give it a little room. And the next thing we have to do is adjust its feather. If we turn off the mask, you can see there's this really kind of hard edge on it. What we want to do is feather that out. So if we select our copy here and hit F, you're going to get your mask feather adjustment. And you're just going to turn that up just a bit, not too much. Yeah, right about there looks right. Now if you scrub across, you can see what it's going to do. Going to kind of just add that glint. And in fact, it may be a little bit too much. So maybe you could just turn the opacity down just to get that glint going. It feels pretty good. I'm going to do a quick RAM preview to see how we're doing. And if we did everything right, it should look pretty close. We just have to add our extra little compositional kind of compositing elements to it. There's our wipe, looking good. Oh man. All right, let's check this out. Good. All right, things are looking good here. Now we can go in and tweak it till our heart's content, but I'll let you guys go ahead and do that. The next thing we're going to do is put on the finishing touches. And with any comp, you always want to kind of get the animation going, and then once it's looking good, come back and add some kind of extra elements to it to kind of help composite it into the background. So there's a couple tricks here. The first thing we're going to do is add a new adjustment layer. So we're going to go to Layer, New, Adjustment Layer, and we're going to add a fast blur to our adjustment layer. And what the fast blur does is obviously blurs very quickly our whole comp down. And I use fast blur because just for render reasons, it's going to render quicker than like a Gaussian blur kind of thing. So set to taste here. I'm going to set this pretty high, maybe 17, some of the blurriness, and then I'm going to set the overlay mode, or the blending mode, to lighten. And you can see what that does is kind of give it just a little bit of an extra glow overall. It's a little much. I'm going to turn that down. You can see we're starting to kind of mush up our composite here. Let's go ahead and add a new adjustment layer. And this time we're going to add another glow on top of everything. So that glow in 32-bit is really going to kind of really help give it that kind of old TV blown out feel. Now, obviously, that's too much. We're going to turn the threshold up so it only clips our whites here. And we're going to turn the glow radius way up. We're going to give it a really big glow. But we're going to turn the intensity down. And we're actually going to turn the opacity on this glow way down, maybe 20%, something like that. That may even be a little much. That feels a little better. You could always tell, too, when these things kind of blur together, you could start to see the glow really working. Yeah, it's looking really good. Feel good about that. So you can kind of check out different frames. Yeah, that feels good. All right, so we just finished making our retro animation, and I wanted to show you guys kind of the best part about the way we got this workflow together. The best part to me is that all of this compositing and all of this work is done in a way where we can go back and change this word, and it'll all filter through the comp. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go into our full type pre-comp, and then I'm going to Alt double click on any one of our layers here to get into our original comp, which we called main type. And here's our type all laid out. Now here's the really fun part for me. We can double click this and let's put my name in here, and just by changing that one thing, we can kind of go back out into all of our main comp here, and you can see all of the animation is there, all of the neon glow moving forward is my name. Everything is driven just by that one layer. So, as you can see, there's a real flexibility in building it all from this one comp and kind of filtering back from there. So go ahead and if you followed along, awesome. And if you haven't, go ahead and try to make one and have fun. All right, so we just made an awesome kind of retro logo animation that's flexible and can be changed down the road. Hope you guys had fun making it. I am Nick for AE Toots, and I will see you guys soon. Bye-bye.